right. Hello and welcome to another edition of Redspin Sports. It's been a minute since we've been recording live. This won't be live when it comes out, of course, but nonetheless, here on the video with not me just doing radio Sputnik appearances on by any means necessary, and a few little couple rants I put up there. But nonetheless, happy to bring in Justin Williams, who's going to be a kind of a regular or semi-regular. We'll see how things go. I mean, in terms of the rotation here, I know Mike Sampson, my buddy from back home, it will be with us the next time we record, and is excited about kind of having this rotation here in the future. Justin's in South Bend, Indiana, and has some editing expertise too that'll help us out, but really some baseball expertise that we're excited to get to tonight, and talk about the class dynamics of baseball. Curt Flood, kind of some background as a St. Louis Cardinals fan himself, but also kind of like the larger discussion of how baseball ties into larger class dynamics in America, the history of it. I mean, I just sort of throw this in here. NBA TV even had something on, and I real quick, Justin, I didn't tell you about this, but it talked about Jackie Robinson, and they talked about how at UCLA baseball was really his worst sport. But what it was a testament to was how baseball and the power of baseball in American culture, that people think of now football as America's passion. I hear football is America's passion, baseball is America's pastime type stuff. But, I don't know. I just wondered if you had any commentary real quick before I go on about just Jackie Robinson and his significance, given what we're about to get into in terms of his multi-sport significance. I think it's interesting, how the fact that he ends up going into baseball speaks to how baseball, the centrality of baseball and the American experience at that time. You got anything you want to say on Robinson before we move on?
Yeah. I mean, real quick, I can throw out there, first and foremost, what an important figure. But had he gone into the other sports, would it have gotten into everyone's homes like it did with baseball? Because baseball was in everybody's homes. And this catapults that conversation. So it didn't move fast. It didn't move nearly fast enough. It was a shame that it even took as long as it did with him. But it pushed things forward that much more because baseball was that important to most people in the U.S. at that point. So, absolutely. Like, had it, I'd heard that a few times that baseball was his worst sport, but, it was the best way to break into, I don't want to say hearts and minds. You know what I'm saying?
The hearts and minds of the American people. I'll do it for you right there. The hearts and minds of the American people. But even though that wasn't really the way things played out for him, as we know, but nonetheless, it's like Robinson, I think it's like people would be, I want to do this and bring in some clips.
Mac Robinson used to say my brother was lightning quick, and maybe he would have developed a crossover and broke somebody's ankle.
He was a leaper, he was a rebounder, he was a ball handler, he was a scorer inside, he could shoot from outside, and it was just an all-around game.
If you read in the yearbooks, as a basketball player, they describe him as being very quick, fast, a good defensive player, and a scorer.
And his nickname was Black Lightning. So this was, decades before DC Comics came out with that character that's now, on the screen.
But Robinson, just the people talking about him that played basketball with him, he was actually playing pro basketball in LA the winter after the 46 baseball season, 1946, when he had signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers, but was playing for the Montreal Royals, the AAA team of the International League. And actually, where I am located now in Jersey City, had a team called the Jersey City Giants. They were the AAA team of the then New York Baseball Giants. And Robinson came and played here in Jersey City. There's actually a statue to him just about a mile and a half down the street from where I am now, to kind of pay homage to that. And then the Dodgers would actually play a few games over here every year in Roosevelt Stadium, which coincidentally was Jackie's middle name too. But nonetheless, let's keep it rolling real quick. I am wearing and rocking my old school, and I'll stand up, Road to San Diego. I wish Michael Sampson at Brother Flourish on Twitter were here for Mark Burnell, Natron Means. Look, Justin can make fun of my hypocrisy talking about the politics and sports, and people like Urban Meyer, who is a right winger, Trevor Lawrence, who has no real conviction about any kind of political beliefs, but he'll talk with Trump, just like kind of chop it up and then talk about BLM and just, unity and like coming together. And, and I'm excited in a totally self-centered kind of way, as Mike Sampson is, I know too, for what this means for Jacksonville, especially after Randy Moss decided to go on ESPN yesterday on Sunday and basically talk about Jacksonville having one of the highest crime rates and some of the worst, and without bringing in any context, of course, about the charlatan mayor of Jacksonville, Lenny Curry, that's like always just out there, who did fail actually in trying to get this new $200+ million in taxpayer funding for redevelopment around the stadium. Did not get through the city council there in Jacksonville. So some people talking about, does that mean London? And I don't think so. I mean, they're not going to bring Urban Meyer in, right? Who now wants to try his hand at the NFL. And I would say that despite, all these coaches, I mean, it's, there's a lot of, most of them, he's a reactionary, he's a right winger. It is what it is. And, but at the same time, Meyer is a culture builder in a program. And like, as far as within the world of football, I think he will bring be like, he'll, lack of a better word, a CEO, that kind of like he'll oversee and develop a culture within the Jacksonville program. And he'll bring in assistant coaches that he'll basically coach. And to have Trevor Lawrence come in there, who I think is the most surefire pro prospect. And where I'm up here, the New York City area, I'm hearing Jets fans still bemoaning the fact that they couldn't lose another couple games and make sure that they tanked for Trevor. But, I have no problem reminding them. But, yeah, go ahead. Make fun of my political inconsistency here, along with the absentee host. And
I am not going to make fun of the politics of Urban Meyer. I mean, there's too much to make fun of. But I am going to ask. Who played in that Super Bowl and what was the score?
Oh, so you talking about the shirt I'm wearing here? Super Bowl 32 was a Denver Bronco victory over the Green Bay Packers. It was at San Diego's Jack Murphy Stadium. This was the year the Jacksonville Jaguars were in their second year in the NFL, coached by Tom Coughlin. The Carolina Panthers were also in their second year in the NFL, coached by Dom Capers. They both, Jacksonville and Carolina, both got to the AFC and NFC Conference Championship games respectively that year, and lost to New England and Green Bay. And setting up, I'm getting mixed up now. This was the next year. This was the year after that, right? So the year before that was Super Bowl 31 in New Orleans that Brett Favre got his only Lombardi trophy there, close to his home, Mississippi. The next year was Jacksonville won the division. It was not as good of a run in the playoffs. I believe one game and lost in the second round. But nonetheless, you had the Broncos and John Elway, the famous helicopter hit where he goes up and kind of spins and gets into the end zone, and beating a heavily favored Green Bay Packer team and denying Favre his second Super Bowl. So there you go. I know what you're.
I was only throwing that out there just in case somebody thought that maybe they were in the Super Bowl.
No. I mean, how t-shirt makers. And by the way, this shirt is being christened for the first time. This is one of these my dad, I think, got for me as I was a little boy, and just kind of got put in the closet. And I realized I was back home a few months ago that, this had not really been worn before. And I'm like, that needs to change. And I figured, why not bust it out here tonight? So anyways, enough of that. We're not here to be a fanboy type show. We're here to talk about, how politics and sports and class struggle and all these things collide and intersect, and why that's important and why it's significant and where those connections are most important. And one thing I wanted to kind of hit on is really the rise of Justin Jackson, running back of the LA Chargers. I talked about this with Jackie Lukeman and Sean Blackman on Friday on my Redspin report, By Any Means Necessary, about how Jackson's rise as a, mid-tier running back in the NFL, who's a solid player, special teams, plays a good bit on offense too.
Solid number two.
Yeah, solid number two. Shows how Kaepernick, first of all, is a starting quarterback, face of a franchise, much different dynamics there. Also, it's not what he's doing isn't really involving the flag and the anthem per se. It's what he's doing off the field and the activism and especially Medicare for all. But not just that. I mean, he's takes on issues of anti-war stuff, takes on issues across the board of taking on corporate Democrats. he really, when you go back and look at his story, cites the 2016 election while he was at Northwestern. He was still in high school when they had the unionization drive in 2014, led by quarterback Kane Coulter. But he just like, he felt like, sure, he's obviously not going to support Trump, but the more he started looking at like, well, why should I support Hillary Clinton? And that's when he kind of like started having the kind of consciousness, coming to pass really, and really manifesting itself for him, because he just saw what a fraud this was, and how the Democrats essentially, and MSNBC kind of is like, or MSDNC was enabling Trump, was profiting immensely, just like the irony now of him being deplatformed is like, well, after like y'all have made just insane amounts of money off this clown. And but Jackson is the only one the AOC actually responded to about force to vote, not Jimmy Dore, not any of these other people that have like big political platforms. And I think that is a testament to the power, the potential power of sports, and the power of sports in this case by Justin Jackson. So yeah, Justin, you kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, from that perspective, like, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to put words in her mouth or assumptions here, but from that perspective of, if you're somebody like her in that position of power, and you've got Jimmy Dore, and then you've got all of the yous and me's on Twitter, blowing up your mentions and doing this. I mean, there's a disconnect where you go, I don't need to respond, or I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to go out and respond to all these people. You see that blue check mark, you don't know who Justin Jackson is. You look it up. He's an NFL running back.
She knows who he is already.
Yeah. But in general, like where the idea comes from of it's a different world. It's removed from that world of like, oh, well, this is just somebody who has, similar or opposite politics of me, but like they operate in my circle, right? Like I'm going to respond, and we all know how that's going to go. But it gives that illusion of operating outside your circle, because he's just a football player, right? It almost like that brain thing, that just goes, oh, all right, like I'll respond to this person. But really, it's kind of like, I know we're going to hit on this also in the intro, but it's kind of like the Tucker thing in a way, right? Like it's a way where it like gets a discourse going that wouldn't normally be there, because he's able to, from that platform, talk about these things and get responses that, do you think Jimmy Dore thought he'd get a response? I don't.
No.
But Justin Jackson's able to.
Well, it's because he also had cachet too. He had gone out and canvassed for Bernie in Nevada. He had been active on Twitter. He had been on a lot of like progressive lefty like YouTube shows and podcast shows and whatnot. So the fact that his Twitter following has continued to grow, those aren't just like NFL football fans following him. I mean, I'd maybe say 5,000 of his 106 or whatever thousand followers on Twitter are like football fans. It's like, you look at his list, it's people that are like, Bernie people, people that are to the left of that, and activist types. So I think AOC knew that. And they're naturally kind of aligned on a lot of issues. So what he's saying is something that is going to, carry some weight, and also can have some transcendent value in transcending, just the political discourse, but also making its way into kind of like football, like headlines, to maybe reaching some other people. But I don't think she had any idea that he was like, that she wasn't going to be able to control the narrative and control, like, basically that, why don't you do this? I think she thinks that, okay, when I explained this, like, oh, we got a $15 minimum wage, get rid of pay-go, then we'll just, no, he wasn't. I think it's powerful there, because when it's in an era where so many athletes are just like trained to just be, deferential, to like, worry about your brand and just like never really be real. It's hard to blame a lot of athletes in the sense of like the way the media comes at people, the way the media distorts things. I mean, I don't, it's in that respect, I don't blame athletes for being cliche machines. If you're like not getting on politics in general, and you're just talking on like what's your sport, what's going on in that, I have no problem at all with athletes being cliche machines, because they're not asking them questions in good faith. They're looking to kind of get them to say something they can then twist and slant in a way to make it, to read in between the lines and say that this is what they meant. Right. So anyways, like, anything else in terms of also Ryan Grimm, you know, anything you want to say about that freaking like intercept, like troll, like DNC interference? I mean, squad, basically he's the mouthpiece of the squad, you know, and
yeah. I mean, and not only that, I listened to the episode, the intercepted episode with AOC on it, you know, and it's tough to get through. I mean, unless you like screaming at your car stereo, but because it was so leading in so many ways. I mean, Scahill did absolutely no hard question.
Oh yeah,
nothing on there was meant to be
like, Stahill's one of my favorite people. You know, people that get rich off being leftists, like Stahill, Naomi Klein. I mean, just the vanguard of the revolution, right? You know.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
It you know, and the whole time listening to her do the Pago thing, you know, was also exhausting, because it's like, yeah, no, that's great, but Congress is built on people doing more than one thing at once. I don't know. Like,
I don't know about you. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So, you know.
Yeah. Like, you know, the idea that like we want something good, but we've got to be so incremental when like, nope, we can write one bill that has 50 giant leaps in a horrifying direction.
Right.
Not a problem. Not a problem. But no, she can't get these two things. It just kind of shows that, you know, it's, you know, maybe it's not all her fault. These are the crumbs she's given, but you know, throw them back. Like, you don't have to get those.
I mean,
like,
also this is the same person. Let's be real. They talked about, so what if you're a one-term, you know, congressperson? That's not the point. The point is to go there and to make, like, as so many of these, you know, liberals like to quote now since John Lewis passed, good trouble, right? But what do they mean by good trouble? They're talking about like giving performative speeches about like Trump's, like, just not just buffoonery, but just straight up, like, you know, running a campaign and running a show where he's built his whole, you know, brand and everything off the backs of QAnon freaks and white supremacists and 3%ers and the oath defenders, whatever, all these other militias, oath keepers, my bad. 3%ers are the ones that were really out there. And like, I don't know if you remember, like the kicker from Marshall University last year, they got drafted by Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Had to get a little 3%er tattoo removal. He just thought it was patriotic though, you know, man. So like, just totally. Being a patriot, it just goes back to like only 3% of people are actually willing to fight for liberty, you know, like, dude, it's some crazy stuff. So I'm not going to get off on that because that's a whole nother rabbit hole, the American Revolution and what that's really about. So let's stop my ADHD right in its tracks here, get back on. And
so where was that kicker when the Q shaman was in the Capitol? Has somebody like made sure that those two aren't the same person? Sorry.
That would be just some good investigative
bad racist
work
tattoos.
I'm
just putting bad racist tattoos.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, he's like he made a big deal of getting it removed, actually. Which shows kind of like how, you know, that some of the activism that's happening, even if it's not the pace we want, like has an effect. Even when I wish Mike were here now because he makes this point like very forcefully that like. We should, instead of getting, some people on the left get so mad about like, you know, pro sports leagues, and I do too, like, and co-opting like social justice stuff. But what it shows is that they feel like they have to do something, right? So of course they're not going to like put like anything that we would like want, but the fact that they feel enough pressure that they have to start trying to co-opt stuff and like develop these like sort of slogans shows that they're feeling something and they recognize that like business as usual can't just persist. So. Yeah, go ahead.
And that moved really quick because I remember the first answer to that tattoo being like discovered. I like discovered. It's been out in the open for his whole college career. Anyway, but that whole thing being noticed was his initial response is, "I'll cover it up."
Yeah,
and then it was like the next day he was like, "No, I'll get it removed."
Yeah,
which
because
just means that even like like he tried that. Just if I cover it up, maybe you'll all shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And nope, nobody did. And finally pulled it off.
It's also evidence that like you cannot undo what's happened this spring with Breonna Taylor, then Ahmaud Arbery, different circumstances than George Floyd. Ahmaud Arbery obviously being two civilians, white, but enabled by, white supremacy, like being able to just have the sense of entitlement to cruise down there. And I don't even care what this whole, discussion that right wingers like to take it in about, what was Arbery doing or not doing. I don't give that any energy because like, that's not, I mean, I don't care if you were, if you were stealing or something like that. It's not a death sentence at all. And like, I'm not even saying he was at all. Just like with the Trayvon Martin stuff about his brain, the people leaking out his, that he had like been in a fight at school or something. It's just, it's always that. That's always the game we play, is trying to go and posthumously slander people instead of keep the focus on why it is that they were killed. Right. And anyways,
unless you're a Nazi that drives from Philly to New York City with a sword, stabs a black homeless man to death, and then the New York Post, I believe, will literally call you dapper.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, the New York Post
and they and didn't they? Yeah, they brought up the arrest record of the man who was killed.
There you go. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, but back to the AOC thing real quick before we wrap on that. It's just the way there's also the Young Turks, and I want to just point out straight up, they are controlled opposition. I mean, they have been funded by Katzenberg from DreamWorks Pictures, a whole slew of people I can just list off. I mean, there's a piece that I got pulled up here, and just to give a few little tidbits on it. I mean, it's just absolutely astounding. You go back and you talk about not just Katzenberg and his donations. This guy's got the Republican Buddy Roemer, former governor of Louisiana, giving Cenk Uygur money. You got Cenk Uygur playing, just selling. I think one of the best dunks that Jimmy Dore and guys like Justin Jackson and so many others that were going after and calling out the fact that these people in the squad. And you're right, there are institutional pressures, but when you're going to be AOC and you're going to make a big point out of like, I'm going up here to cause trouble, to shake things up, that people like Pelosi, are going to have to be replaced. This is about forcing a vote. We got to stop being polite. We got to stop worrying about being like people tone policing us and getting mad and express that righteous indignation of oppressed people in the quote unquote people's house, even though I can't stand how many times I've heard that, as if like what goes on, especially in the U.S. Senate, is anything but just like a sham of a presentation. It's like of democracy. That's not democracy. It's essentially oligarchs, the representatives of oligarchs, doing the bidding of the lobbyists that are the middlemen for the most insidious war profiteers, the people that are pushing empire and pushing misery on the rest of the world by essentially doing the bidding of the largest corporations with the largest concentration of wealth in the world, who intentionally want to keep countries as captive markets. They want to keep countries as captive markets that are poor, that have cheap labor, that is desperate enough to be willing to work for almost nothing, to produce big profits. It's why they have a problem with Syria and Bashar al-Assad. It has nothing to do with any of his human rights violations, which, like, sure, like it's not that the Assad family is a dynasty, but it's the fact that that's not their beef. Their beef is like if they had a beef with that, they'd have a major problem with Saudi Arabia. They have a major problem with Bahrain, with the absolutist monarchy of the United Arab Emirates. They don't have a problem with any of those. What they have a problem with is the fact that Syria insists and demands its sovereignty, and it has. And let's also not forget, they're being crushed by these Caesar sanctions that have been put in just the most cruel way to prevent Syria from even being able to rebuild now. Well, so the U.S. is overseeing a poverty plantation essentially now. That is the Syrian state. And regardless of what people, there's well-intentioned leftists and whatnot that have serious issues. They're big Rojava supporters and whatnot. I don't want to get into all that right now. But the reality to me, and I think Justin, and I know Mike, is that you have primary and secondary contradictions, all right? And sure, the world and the geopolitical chess game, it makes you sometimes have to make some uncomfortable decisions on like where you put your support. But the reality is, for me, the primary contradiction is imperialism, U.S.-backed imperialism. You can throw the U.K. in there, call it, the North Atlantic, the NATO imperialism, with
NATO imperialism.
What Western Europe too. And what the whole thing with that is that is the biggest threat to there being any world order that can challenge this world order that keeps most of the world in poverty, that's destroying the planet, that's causing all these effects that we all talk about. And we get under all these different specific issues, but it is the system that props up Wall Street and London's supremacy and hegemony on a global scale. So if you're going to sit there and put all your energy into the human rights violations of the Assad regime, or acting as if we shouldn't continue every day to not forget what George W. Bush did, that ultimate war criminal of epic proportion, who should be absolutely shunned and not accepted and ostracized everywhere he goes.
Should be in the
everywhere Hague. He goes should be in the Hague. Like you talk about these European criminal courts, right? That always only go after African warlords, right? These people that are set up essentially to be warlords by these private corporations in the West that go in there for mineral extraction. Mineral extraction, and essentially one will hire one tribe and they'll go get their child soldiers to fight, and another big corporation will hire its muscle from another tribe. People that are desperate, have no options, are living in a place like the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the third poorest country on earth, even though it's one of the wealthiest countries on earth in terms of its resources of minerals, its copper, its cobalt, chromium, the things that, make these phones we use, make the computers we use, make all these electronics we have that, are essential for the material well-being that we enjoy here in the West. That system that enables all of that enables Yemen to be now sanctioned by this government, as the Trump administration goes out the door, and I doubt will be even reversed by the Biden administration. And the most cruel, and Cuba to be called a state sponsor of terrorism. I mean, this upside down world. If you don't realize that, I'm sorry, it is as simple sometimes as if you are being supported by the U.S. national security state, and even if it's like you don't have any other options, I'm sorry, like opposing imperialism, it's the only way that you'll ever, for instance, let's talk about an issue like Palestine, there'll ever be any freedom for Palestine. There's never even be the possibility of it. The people in Gaza could be free. So I don't know. I just went on a rant there, but I think that's something that all this other shit we're talking about, can be collapsed into understanding that if we don't get that is really what people have to realize. If the litmus test for the left is, are you an anti-imperialist or are you not? And I'm sorry that makes me reductionist, whatever people want to say, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, without it, things at home don't get better until we make things better with it. That policy carries over into every part of our lives. Like, we're violent here because we're violent abroad. Like. So it's not reductionist at all. Like, I mean, I know a lot of, normie libs through, a certain spectrum of leftists that are very domestic policy centric. And of course, like I want those things too.
Right.
But most of them can't be solved unless we solve that other thing, because it's just a circle of behavior that we do. You can't be like, we will stop violence here within our own borders without having to touch violence that we perpetuate around the planet. It's not going to happen.
No,
it's not possible. But what's real violence, though? Take us back to AOC. What's real violence? Swearing at her on Twitter.
Thank you, because I forgot to bring the cardinal sin of 2020 up, right? Which was Jimmy Dore's, inappropriate tone. And Nomiki Konst, who's like gone on and talked about, taking Assad money, right? Because, progressives really need to be worried about like whether or not Jimmy Dore got like, I mean, I don't even know. It's just so ridiculous. It's like, I can't even like comment on it. Dan Cohen absolutely owned her, by the way, at Dan Cohen 3000 on Twitter. It's just hilarious. She's a complete fraud. She's gone on Tucker. And then you had her little like cheerleader friend, Emma Vigeland, whose parents are like, Fortune 500 corporate like defenders of like some of the worst people on Wall Street after they like were on the other side as U.S. attorneys, you know. And of course, I mean, I can't prove this, but you know, her parents made some influential donations within the DNC. She's from a very wealthy North Jersey background, went to elite girls high school in Summit, New Jersey, which just so happens to be where Eli Manning lives too. Her BFF is a huge New York Giants fan who is, you know, got, you know, really posh seats there at MetLife Stadium with their parents and all. And look, I'm not criticizing things. I come from, you know, a family where, you know, I've disclosed this before. My dad's a circuit court judge in Florida, and, you know, and it is what it is. And it's like, he's that process for him, to be honest with you, though, he's older now, is something that's, he's taken a lot of heat and actually hasn't gotten appointed to other positions that have been higher up because he hasn't, you know, played the game, and he's been willing to, you know, just kind of, you know, so much of that is politicized, whatever people want to say about the bench. Yeah. I think that's something he learned. And ironically, sports helped my dad, I think, move to the left a little bit in his own life because, you know, realizing like are the teammates we had, the struggles they were going through, like the guys have, you know, come and stay at our house that like didn't have, you know, stable homes and stuff, and start to realize like, you know, what is this all just a lack of personal responsibility? Like, no, there's other stuff at work here. Like there's other forces at work here. Right. And those kind of like, it was part of for me, this would be like early to mid 2000s. And then as then getting injured and seeing the stuff, the horrible, horrific shit with our healthcare system, and his son, me going through that affected it. So I'm not like saying that like, who your parents are should define you. I think I'm fortunate that I had through sports initially, and then it, you know, went on domino effect from there. I had a lot of exposure though to not just my own class background, and I knew and had interactions with people from some very rough backgrounds and in tough situations. And I think that at least made it possible for me to like kind of see through, and also just sort of see just how cynical so much of this stuff is, because you see the way it is on you know, kind of like people that I grew up with and kind of what they're doing and stuff now, and across so many cases. And then you see just the total indifference towards, and not just indifference, but like the total just like gleeful characterization of like oppressed people as just being, you know, lazy and like, you know, undeserving and all the usual stuff. It's a reason they do that. It's not an accident. It's like it fits their class interest, right? To it out to be that's a natural order, that their hierarchy, their privilege is like a deserved, it's just a natural byproduct of the invisible hand, you know, which is somehow an innate part of the world, right? It's just as, you know, much science as Isaac Newton's discovering gravity in these people's mind. No, they have to like try to come up with stuff like that to justify this completely, I'll say it, fucked up reality of inequality on steroids, which is what we live with, right, in this country every single day. So the squad, and to close out on that completely, look, they said they're going to do something. They said the reason they're going there is not to try to get, you know, to stay on forever, to play the game. They're not playing three-dimensional chess. It's like the reality is you get there, you get proximity to power. It's enticing. Like it would affect me, right? If I get in a situation like that. I mean, if I weren't, I mean, to be honest, that's why I'm not, all right? And I'm not running for Congress like that, is that, you know, the act as if you can just individually resist kind of these, because you get normalized. You hang out with people, you get to see people, you get to enjoy a comfortable lifestyle, that you can start rationalizing things. It's human nature. So it's like, you have to check that. If you don't, and you have all the receipts of AOC, what she said, that's why it's such a big deal. And that's why Fraud Squad was trending on Twitter, because it's not like she hadn't said that what Jimmy Dore was suggesting, what Justin Jackson's pushing for, and so many others, right? That I'm not trying to forget anybody here. There's like lots and lots of people that were on board, you know, with that. And you know, advocates of it, that's what she was going to do. That was the whole point of her campaign. So if you're not going to do it, what is the point? Like, you know, like the people that are in situations without healthcare and are going, and you see it, and I see it as a teacher in the education system, dealing with kids from just the very low income situations, just tragic. That makes you want to cry type stuff every day, and seeing the things that people are going through, not even having stable Wi-Fi, like on a mass level, and like just dealing with, I mean, these things exist, and like you can't fight like hell like nothing else matters to get healthcare, and also make the point to Justin's point that about how unless you fight and you weaken the ability of U.S. imperialism to operate, you're not going to be able to afford stuff like a national health system. To be real about it, like the Federal Reserve can print money and all, it's whatever, but in reality, unless you do not spend more than 60% of your federal budget on militarism, on spooks going out and like doing these like just insane games where the ends justify the means endlessly, on defense contractors, on all these people with their hands in the cookie jar, you can't actually afford this stuff, right? And it's why the establishment, if was to get elected, would tank the economy before they tried to let him succeed. And if that's why we cannot just rely on electoral politics. It can be a vehicle, but there has to be mass movements that can like be to the left of these people. And AOC, and one thing I'll say is that if there was that, and we did have that level of organizing, it would be easier for an AOC to take the right position. Let's just get off this idea that AOC is somehow not this part of the system like anyone else, though. Yeah, she's better than most Democrats, sure, but that's a low bar.
Yeah. So I was going to say it's a low bar. And in case there's anybody out there who still doesn't understand why they should think about foreign policy in line with domestic policy or where they rank these things, it's a disgusting thing to have to think about somebody inside the richest nation in the world dying because they have a lack of health care. But you know what's worse than that? The fact that somebody else out there by the hundreds a day die simply because they live somewhere that's not here, that we've chosen to exploit,
or
and
sanction.
Then they die to keep us the richest, where then that person without health care can then die.
Right.
This is it, and not look at that as just, like it's the ultimate thing. Like I'm real popular with my friends because if somebody has a bad day, I just will instantly be like, well, you weren't being bombed simply because
all right, and by popular, I'm sure you mean not popular, actually.
People absolutely hate that. But like, did you get fucking drone strike today?
Right.
I didn't.
Right.
So have the energy to like fight and move things forward. But no, we don't do that inside the richest nation on earth.
Yeah, and the reality is like none of that what Justin just said like means that people that are oppressed under this system, that people that are not doing they're not falling in it. We're talking about people that are like that have like at least some middle class type situation where they're not like facing existential like life and death. Like those people are very much like they're dealing with their own realities of like Venezuela under sanctions or Yemen. You go to some of the worst neighborhoods here in the U.S. They are like oppressed, captive markets within the empire. They just happen to be within the borders because the payday loan industry, all the terrible like food, the Murder King, the McDevils, and all the other places that are there to kill people. Or just keep people low energy so that they have enough to go work and then just kind of eat and, enjoy some ball games, whatever. So let's get it back on sports in that regard here, talking about ball games. And Kyrie Irving, like, what's your take on Jackie McMullen saying that, wake up, Kyrie, you are property of a team?
We got into an argument about, something. And he's like, well, there shouldn't be an NBA draft. Players should be able to go wherever they want to go. We're not, someone's property. And I'm like, yeah, you are, dude. That's the way it works.
Yeah. My take on that first and foremost is, garbage thing to say. And she defends it. It coming out, like her using that as some sort of gotcha is what's really weird to me. Like that's how she's using this, because didn't that conversation happen? She said it in an interview like 2 years ago or something. She literally just mentioned this, but talks about it 2 years ago.
Well, let's bring up why is she mentioning it now? Because he's been AWOL from the team. He's been like, and first of all, I find it real. I don't mean to cut you off, Ben, but like the whole thing about him not wearing a mask at his like sister's birthday party with some people. Like, I mean, look, I know, I'm not trying to be like Mr. like Trump or open it up or anything like that, but I am reaching a point to where like, look, you look at China and how even the New York Times had a piece today that was not like super negative on China. They talked about how they've been up and running. Wow. There was still some negative stuff in there, but like it was like talking about how their economy is growing and it like things are back up and moving. And it's because they did a draconian lockdown, but they did it like in a way that was like serious and had teeth, and they had a national cohesive plan to it, right? They have, supply chains that are like, that when people want to make fun of command economies and stuff, all right, yeah, what did we get here? We get like dipshit governors like Ron DeSantis in Florida who can just like, do whatever the heck he wants, and then have those people leave and travel to other parts of the country, spread COVID, have, idiots like in Mississippi with Tate Reeves or, just go down the list, who cares? But like the point is that that's what you get federalism, right? Oh, we should be so grateful for the freedom to have like, 50 different dipshit governors getting to like, make just fragmented policy that doesn't even make coherent sense. So the point is that this whole like, stuff here with like with COVID and like the lockdowns and everything, this is going on for like, we're coming up on a year now. And then it's all this liberal virtue signaling, like type shaming you see, where it's like wealthy liberals who want to like use it as a way to sort of like, I think a classist, like looking down on like poorer people, like also like looking down like Black communities where people are living in much more higher concentration of people in closer quarters. People are like just depression, mental health issues that are a direct result of poverty, right? And a direct result of the just desperate, depressing conditions around people. And then all this like, oh, stay at home, save lives. Like, great if you can. But we don't live in a country that has stimulus for people, that's providing to make sure people can do that and make safe decisions. So instead, this indefinite like lockdown where some people that are like, atomized like little aliens now that have become like Silicon Valley creatures basically are, like this is probably like some of those people actually enjoy this, to be honest with you, because like, oh yeah, I get to like stay home and just like, not have to like have like real conversations, living like that guy Vosh probably likes it. I can't, by the way, I don't want to get in trouble with it, but
it's all good. It's all good.
How, but anyways, just like he's a perfect example of someone who like, I don't even know if he's like human really. It's like, he's like lives in a virtual like land. It's like, you look at his little streams and it's like little like bot things coming up on Twitch and an endless like stream. And he's like talking about like making fun of like, communism and tankies and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, from his little virtual reality he's living in. But just going back to the liberals, right? And these people that it's all Kyrie Irving, disdain, shaking our fingers, like, so Jackie McMullen, Miss Good Liberal from the Boston Globe, right? So I don't know. It's just disgusting. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, by the way, if we lived in a country that had stimulus and all that stuff, we'd be like New Zealand right now, where they haven't had a case in like a month and a half, and everything's just open and everything's fine. So anyway, just like to throw that out there, that like no cases in like a month and a half. I'm gonna feel really bad if like between us recording this and then this coming out that they have one. I'm gonna feel like shit, but as a point of recording, they still haven't had a case in like a month and a half.
Whatever. I mean, they have a case or whatever. It's like, but still, the point remains.
Yeah, exactly. Like they've handled it. No, but like, so her pulling this out, so with that context, right? He's been AWOL from the team. He's a new human being with agency, but anyway, I guess that's not allowed.
Well, I mean, I get the point that like when you're like compared to everybody else, I can understand why in this situation, everyone else is dealing with all kinds of crap. It's sort of like, I mean, dude, what's your deal? Especially, but that's about it. That's as far as I'll go. Other than that, he's been on a Zoom call with a progressive Manhattan DA candidate, so he's clearly exploring himself and trying to figure out like, should we maybe be really playing ball like this? Like in a pandemic, is this the most important thing? I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like she's a member of that sports media class, the same people that made a bigger deal, like, out of Marshawn not talking, out of anyone not talking. because it has more to do with them feeling like that's an ego dig to them, because it's like, no, like I'm a respectable capital R reporter. Like, you need to talk to me and answer my questions that always suck. They're never good questions. They're always awful. Like anyway, I don't want to get off on that either, but you know what I'm saying?
No, they are. They don't relate to the lived experiences of the people, the athletes they're covering.
And so for her to like bring this up like a gotcha is just like the most white liberal bullshit I can think of, because it's like she's literally saying he hasn't showed up, he's abandoning. Let me tell you about this thing 2 years ago when I reminded him that he was property, and she thinks it's a gotcha and not a horribly racist statement that she made.
Yeah, think about it, man. In the context of American history, I mean, like, you are property. We're talking about it, but it distills so much of the mentality that, like, I'm just saying, like, don't be privileged. We all realize that when we're at work, we give up all of our rights and our bosses own us. Like, maybe that's what we should be talking about. Like, that we, should look at like what makes a well-intentioned bleed heart liberal like Jackie McMullen think that there's nothing wrong with it. Shows how much propaganda we've internalized, because she would certainly, like you just said before we recorded, like never say that she doesn't have a racist bone in her body, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. She'll die on that hill.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to let you know real quick, man, like, I mean, it's Ode Abusi, who's like played college football at UVA, Palestinian American, was trashed on by the Israel lobby for not even making any radical like statements, really. I remember when I was president of Students for Justice in Palestine at Florida State University, that was kind of going on. So I think his sister actually is running for the local DA spot in Manhattan. Yeah, to try to like, get more progressive DAs in there so they can actually do stuff like go after corrupt landlords and whatnot, and instead of just like prosecuting people, throwing the book at them. And he was on the call with like Linda Sarsour and Cynthia Nixon and other progressives in New York City. So actually, like, engaging in the world, trying to grow, trying to learn in the pandemic about things that are like really affecting people's lives. And what a terrible thing, right? I mean, awful. Can't be. It's mind blowing, man.
But he should have given Jackie and other press, an
exclusive
press, an exclusive press conference.
Right.
Like they didn't lambaste the WNBA player. I'm going to blank on her name, but who's fought to get a man out of prison for the last
Maya
Moore.
Maya Moore. She missed the whole season working on that, and she accomplished it.
Yeah, and and I'm sure that I could probably dig up some articles where somebody was like, "This is a bad decision and bad for her career." But I mean, but
it's also because we live in a patriarchal society, and women's sports don't get the coverage. I mean, that men's do, and it's just like in the explanation is always like, well, look at the ratings, and we're just giving people what they want. I mean, to some extent that's true. We do live in capitalism, and it's like people are. Clearly don't, watch or have the level of interest in the WNBA, but there's a lot of reasons for that. And that's another discussion. It is important and about why the gendered realities of sport, and, even going back to football's origins, about it's a way of developing, rugged, masculine, strong men that'll help make a strong nation. That'd be like a warrior class. And a lot of them will even come from like the gentleman class. They can kind of have that dual, that football is kind of like their way of like kind of developing a manhood sort of before they become too insulated from what it means to have to be physically strenuous based on their material comfort and privileges. So just real quick before we get on to your baseball monologue on Curt Flood and others, is I want to make sure we hit on making fun of, again, the IDF and this like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and so many other NFL guys. I'm going to be tweeting out some of the clips from Mike Sampson and I, Max Blumenthal over the summer. There was so much we did on that. And like, we've had a lot of people that have come on and followed the show, whether it's on YouTube with the video or just like listen to the stuff we put out on, you know, whether Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, you know, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to the stuff. So I want to get some of that stuff out there because it's just really mind blowing when you get into it. I hadn't seen this yet. In 2014, evidently, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were at a remote IDF outpost, basically shooting shit, you know, like, you know, just hanging out with the IDF, you know, just like learning how do they deal with all the stress of like having to have like, you know, menacing terrorists, you know, up and, you know, right on their borders all the time. The way that's framed is just unreal. You've got so much like NFL Network propaganda. And when Bob Kraft's not busy going in and patronizing, you know, human traffic,
$5 million. Yeah.
Human traffic fronts that are also, you know, function as massage parlors for him. Right. You know,
he gives $5 million a year.
As Matt said during that episode, you know, there's nothing, you know, he really likes to, I don't want to butcher it, so we'll just play the clip. But he got some funny jokes that I actually didn't respond to at the time that were pretty solid there. But I don't want to get myself in trouble here without the right context. So also, it's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day while we're recording today. I think it's important to point out. I don't want to go on too long, but something always gets left out is the king of the last 3 years of his life, not the king of the "I Have a Dream" speech that, you know, when you're in schools in America, they're always talked about. The aspirational king, the king that's talked about, you know, this, you know, just the one that liberals love, the one that liberals are all about. But talking about the king, there's a great documentary called King in the Wilderness. I forget the platform it's on right now, but it follows the last 3 years of his life. And he was a pariah. I mean, he was abandoned by the liberals, white liberals that had supported him. He had gone to Chicago to try to organize one of the most segregated cities in America. And he dealt with just all sorts of stuff. He made the speech at Riverside Church in New York City about Vietnam in 1967 that enraged many of the people that wanted him just to focus narrowly on civil rights, making the connection between imperialism and militarism and capitalism and the problems that, you know, people of color and poor people are facing back home. We know that he was in Memphis, Tennessee, to not just talk exclusively about race anymore, but to be there in solidarity with like striking sanitation workers and their slogan and the signs they held up, or "I am a man." It was about, you know, working class dignity and, you know, a Black working class struggle for dignity and respect there in Memphis, and like in not just respect, but like be respect in the form of like being fairly compensated for the, you know, the work that's you know, when you're a sanitation worker, I mean, you're taking years off your life, you know, I mean, that's like a really, really hard job. And so King gave a speech the night before he was assassinated. And mind you, I want to make it clear that J. Edgar Hoover has his blood on his hands. The things he put in motion, talking about we got to stop the Black Messiah. We got to, you know, the way they went into SCLC, Dr. King's organization, and a lot of the other civil rights organizations they worked with, and spread rumors about an innuendo about who's sleeping with who, and to try to sow divisions and to try to like turn people against each other. They, you know, used everything imaginable to like psychologically destroy Dr. King, and he still was able to persist. And when you hear his mountaintop sermon speech he gave the last night, you know, it's very clear he knows he doesn't have many days left on this earth. I mean, he's like, you know, and I've seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. I mean, that's when you think about that, you think about the Old Testament type stuff, and why you can really see why there's Old Testament, you know, stories I can relate so much to people that have had a legacy of coming up out of slavery, because it's like, you know, it's about persisting in the face of oppression, and it's about like some of those, and you see the identification where in those old spiritual and hymnals when they come from, and it's like the idea that I've seen the coming of the Lord, you know, and like and I don't know if I'm going to make it with y'all like across that mountaintop, but you know, but I know that it basically saying like, you know, my security detail has been, you know, cut back. I'm a marked man. I got threats against me from left and right. The idea of James Earl Ray, I think, you know, more I learned that being a sole, you know, assassin just doesn't make any sense. This guy just gets out of prison on his own, then just suddenly, all of a sudden, it's like, yo, let me go get a gun and just shoot King. Like, where there's like, you know, maybe I'm not saying he's not capable. The guy clearly, I think, a racist, and he was like, you know, somebody that, but it's clearly much more institutional. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover should, at the very least, have his name taken off the freaking FBI building. That's an absolute travesty. So, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I mean, the FBI it'll be another 50 years before they admit that they did kill him. But, you know, within the last decade, they have admitted that they wanted to kill him.
Right.
I mean, they've straight up.
That's the same to me.
Like,
you don't actually have to do it. It's like with 9/11. If you read Max Blumenthal's book, The Management of Savagery, you realize that the U.S. government didn't have to do an inside job, because if you let out these people that are committed Salafi jihadists that like believe in Wahhabism, and you act like you can keep turning them, you somehow are going to, like, you know, release these guys and then get them to be double agents and go back to some Al-Qaeda camp. People that like were part of the USS Cole bombing, people that have been committed to this sort of like Salafist, like, you know, jihad, like crusade against the West. You know, all you have to do is let them out and they're going to do something, you know? I mean, the system was blinking red. It's like, they're culpable. Then what do? They let all the Saudi royal people connected with them. The only people to fly out and fly in U.S. airspace that night were the Saudis. So I don't think I don't think it was an inside job. I just think it was like you sit back and you create the conditions to where you know something's going to happen. Then you have a casus belli for the Iraq War, not to mention everything else, Patriot Act. Of course, even more sooner after that, the Afghanistan War, which was sold as like the good war back then, which we're still in now to this day. So anyways, moving on, we got the shithead. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, they are one and the same. And King, you know, that same thing we were talking about 10 minutes ago, you know, King understood and became aware that it's all tied and that you can't fix shit at home if you're going to keep that same thing as like a national, like, this is how we interact with the world. We slaughter who we want. We treat whoever we want the way that we want to treat them. Some good, some bad, mostly bad. And we'll kill you and take what you have. Like, we will kill to keep what's ours.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like how we do things at home. And he drew that distinction. And like we can, it's that classic American thing, right? We'll let you talk about this, but man, don't put that together with the other shit that goes hand in hand, because then you have to die. Like,
then you have to die. Yeah, you have to die. Sorry. Not sorry, actually, but, you know, I mean, you
have to die unless you have an audience, and he had an audience. Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even allies, the U.S. get killed at hung to dry, like the South Vietnamese fascist dude, Diem, you know, who ends up being left out there to hung out to dry. He was like the dude who played ball at the U.S. If you're not useful at that point, they'll still gotta go, right? So even playing ball with the system doesn't guarantee that like you're going to be protected from the kind of savagery that's like not. Again, like I'd say this all the time when people say like, oh, you hate your country. No, I hate like the kind of government we have. I hate the national security state we have. I hate these people that gaslight all the people I grew up with and know into like believing these myths that actually hold us back and keep human beings from actually being able to live lives that are, you know, that we control and have more, you know, agency over, and like aren't like just subjected to, you know, having these same problems repeat themselves over and over again, and then wondering why it's happening, and then chalking them up to like, you know, loss of like moral values and a need for like spiritual renewal, when we know that these are systemic issues that are replaying themselves because we haven't taken the people out of power that are absolute psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever. That create this crap.
Yeah, like what? Like at the same time, to anyone who says that shit, I just have one question: what is something that's uniquely American? So I mean, you cannot find it anywhere else that is uniquely American, that is worth loving.
Baseball.
See that anyway.
Baseball. Tune in.
It's the only right answer. But I'm just saying, like,
basketball.
Yeah.
All right. So, but I think these answers are kind of honestly the best of America in a lot of ways. Really is like, I think you look at it like that are uniquely American things. Like the sports we developed are things that people from around the world, from all different backgrounds, have genuinely enjoyed. Like in China, they love basketball. I mean, it was developed by up in Massachusetts with Naismith with the peach baskets at first, and obviously grew on and was reinvented in different ways by different people. But like,
aside from sports, I can't name any of it. I mean
some art,
everything else.
That you've had, but yeah, and then even a lot of the best, most unique art comes from people of color. It comes from people that oppressed nationalities, people within, that are American, but there are people that have, been not given full, citizenship and full rights, and have had to fight for those to get them, here just in recent last few decades of history. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. Your point's sort of rhetorical, but there's no doubt. We got the My Pillow guy who's I love it now. Dominion is threatening a lawsuit against this clown. I mean, this guy is like still talking about with they're still talking about they like in like so many others, the QAnon people that they still believe that before Wednesday morning now that Trump is going to, I guess, pull out the file of Biden with the pedophilia or something like that, and then expose this whole like ring of whatever. So I don't know. I got nothing else on that other than just
the best public service that Abby Martin's brother Robbie does is he listens to a lot of Q shit, so we don't have to, so he can just report on it. I can't imagine. I could not do it personally. I mean, getting through that one Intercepted episode was enough. But like, Steve Pachenik was on. I learned this from Robbie Martin. Steve Pachenik was on Alex Jones's show literally yesterday, talking about how still like Biden won't be inaugurated. Like it's not going to happen.
Well,
like, it's full on.
They're going to.
It's a full-on coup, and the military's just going to flip it.
Well, so there's also the reality that thanks to these jackasses, we now like have a complete fortress in Washington D.C. that's like already more than it was, and working people are can't ride the metro to get where they need to. It's making getting the child care hard for like working people in the District of Columbia, and of course like. These national security people love having a reason to do this anyways, but they got, I remember driving around DC when the night after this a little, and just sort of like already seeing it start to happen with the big flatbed 18-wheelers coming in with the huge barricades, the fencing, driving in. They had like hundreds of Virginia State Police in there too, Maryland State Police, along with DC Metro Police and National Guard people. And they were bringing in all this stuff and infrastructure to put up the fortifications that you see now. That that's essentially like looks like a prison state around there. So that's really wild. So the last thing I want to get on before we get to your baseball monologue is just kind of what I talked about on Friday on By Any Means Necessary. Really should be pointed out that the Intercept had just stole Max Blumenthal's reporting. I was with him when he was doing a lot of these phone calls and putting in an enormous amount of work, tracking down every possible angle of who James and John Sullivan are as people, who this the filmmaker Jade Sacker is, the relationship she has with both of them, how much still just with all the reporting he did, how many more questions it raises. I mean, this John Sullivan, it's a sports angle on him is like being he did U.S. Speed skating team trials. Like the guy was raised. He and his brother were adopted by a white Mormon Utah family where the father is a lieutenant general in the Air Force and is a diehard right winger. His brother James is a committed, Trump militia, type, black guy who's brought into that circle, kind of to give them cover for like, we're not racist, we got him. Yeah. But they were raised like in a home that raised them to be, quote, colorblind. So they have, like John Sullivan talked about after George Floyd getting killed, that he had no like understanding of what even being black is or was. Like, it is at all for him, right? In terms of what that means, what kind of history goes along with that. So, the only thing I could say in fairness to the guys, maybe like that had something to do with it, but no, that's it. Because at the end of the day, is like he really screwed over like BLM. He gave them a lot of the negative press that he made it. I mean, the right wing people are going to come up with negative stuff to say regardless, but he made it very easy on them. It doesn't help in the context of like the scrutiny Black Lives Matter is under to have a guy get up there and talk about like, we're going to go in there and like, violently drag the president out and like drag his body around.
Yeah.
It just doesn't help achieve their objectives. It's like, talk like about it being, like, whatever, but it's not helpful. And it's like doing that stuff plays right in to the narratives of the right wing that are trying to paint them as like terroristic, as inherently violent and all this stuff. And he's up there doing that. This is a guy that we saw him unmask through his own live stream. Ironically, this guy just like exposes himself. He doesn't even have the, he's such an attention like junkie, like who just can't get enough of it that he like, didn't even have the patience to like film the stuff in the Capitol and then edit out stuff he was saying. But he was sitting there egging on all these MAGA people. So at the same time when he's talking about there's like some MAGA woman in Utah, they shot at a protest actually in the summer because she was like kind of like not driving, like running people over, but like kind of driving slowly through a crowd. And like, it's like, let's get this thing. This guy gets off to just shit getting fucked up, right? He gets off to like chaos. This guy is like according to his brother, a amphetamine junkie basically, who like is like up and down, who's like craves the attention, craves the thrill of like being out and just stuff happening. You heard him at the Capitol with these Trump people. He kept going up to the cops and saying like, "Oh, we want you to go home to your family. Like you should have seen that they ran through this barricade last time. It's so dangerous. You should just move aside. And then saying stuff like, oh, we did it. This is awesome. Blah blah blah. So there's even a funny ad. Maybe we can throw this in here when right now. When we do the editing of him with Uber, I was telling you about it and how Uber did this whole PR thing about how, John Sullivan is a speed skater and doing all this. And now he can train more because being a driver for Uber lets him explore new places and like do sightseeing basically and have fun. It's awesome.
There's no other time in my life that I will be able to do this again. My dream is to be world champion. Every single day, 6 hours a day. I wouldn't be able to do that. It's just not possible. Uber allows me that flexibility to spend more time on the ice. I am John Sullivan. I'm a world-class speed skater, and I drive with Uber.
So this is a guy who's clearly mentally not right, who was then being propped up for the profit interest by this Jade Sackler trying to make who's been won like an Oscar before actually, trying to, make money off of like this sibling feud they have. And I think it's pretty clear from what I've heard from Black Lives Matter people, and Justin, I think you've heard some stuff too, that this guy gets released after getting arrested quickly, that he's a perfect useful idiot kind of for police departments to just sort of like release and let the chaos happen. And
so for obviously any listeners, this is your first time with me on here, so I'll throw out that I moved here to South Bend after spending 15 years in Seattle, and moved not that long ago. And I have a lot of friends that residences were inside of the autonomous zone, plus a lot of friends that were involved in keeping that secure, also involved in the organization of that.
That was Chaz, right?
And that dude back in June was banned.
From Chaz, right?
And that dude was banned back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, there you go.
Like this guy's not a new face. He's not a new face for a lot of people that are familiar to these movements.
Well, but like, he is for Anderson Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen him before.
He's a leftist activist. He's just He's just out there reporting the facts, Justin,
Yeah.
just trying to bring the info to the people. What a joke. I mean, and then he gets like the same, I mean, other media too, like I think the AP, I don't want to, Reuters, I think said like a liberal activist or something, but I think it's a good time to transition. We've been riffing for longer than I planned. It usually happens. And for us to go on and let's hear from you about like baseball and labor and kind of making those connections. I mean, I'm a huge baseball fan. I love the history of the sport. The game. It's like there's a lot of reasons for that, but Justin, I think knows even more than I do. So Justin, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to you and kind of let you tell us a little bit about some of your background and why you think it's understanding baseball in the American context and class struggle and issues of race and stuff, where they intersect and why it's significant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So first and foremost, I unapologetically love baseball. I am one of those people that that definitely even a corny movie like Moneyball will get me with that line about how it's hard not to be romantic about baseball. So I get that not a lot of people feel that way about baseball. There's a lot of baseball hate. Even among sports fans, there's a lot of baseball hate. It's long, it's slow, despite the fact that the average game in 2007 was only 5 minutes longer than an NFL game. But yeah, there's a lot of hate on baseball in general. And, I find that I think the best way to get people to connect to something is to connect it in ways that are outside of just, the sport and the head-to-head. So what I wanted to talk about especially with the Kyrie Irving, people are property stuff that Jackie pulled, is talk about Curt Flood. So Curt Flood was a Cardinal outfielder. He actually was the Cardinals' Jackie Robinson in a way. He wasn't their first black player, but he was the first black player that saw playing time and then contributed. So essentially, I don't want to go into that whole history, but, Augie Bush, integrated the team for some selfish reasons. Wasn't necessarily looking for ball players, but did want to integrate the team. But the first player, let's just say, got ran out of baseball due to the organization still being unbelievably racist. So 1958, Curt Flood joins. He came over from the Reds. Curt Flood actually came over the year before Bob Gibson. So Bob Gibson came a year later. And there was still some racial stuff that they both, put up with in that first year. A very short-lived Cardinals manager told them that in spring training that they would never make it in baseball and they should probably go do something else. Which, Nate, I know Bob Gibson. I mean, telling Bob Gibson, just imagine, telling Bob Gibson, hey, you suck at this. You should go find a different job. I mean, the insanity.
Unspeakable,
right?
man.
The racist brain that has to be like, wow, this guy's amazing. I'm going to tell him he sucks. So Curt Flood enjoyed a lot of success in St. Louis. I mean, that team in the 60s, they won the World Series in 64. They won it in 67. They lost the World Series in 68. But they were easily, one of the most successful teams of the 60s. And they were doing it with Hall of Fame white and black players. Curt Flood and Bob Gibson early on came together to actually desegregate the hotels, because although the team was integrated, their travel situations weren't. So they weren't allowed to travel with white players. They weren't allowed to stay with white. I mean, again, insane to think about that. Now this is 1961. We are a ways past Jackie coming in at this point. And they still had to desegregate, hotels in the clubhouse. Anyway, so he was no stranger to standing up for what he believed. Bob Gibson was also, one of those guys that always supported Curt Flood and all he did. Maybe in that way that, Bob Gibson had had a better career. I mean, Bob Gibson was a first ballot Hall of Famer. But, you know, we don't have to go into it, but you can just look up how many records that man holds. You know, like Bob's a world-class pitcher.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
you know,
Justin.
If
you could just talk to the fear he struck in like hitters and how, like, you know, when a white pitcher, you know, was that dominant, they would just be like, he was romanticized. Whereas with Gibson, it's like he's angry. He's, he's whatnot. And then also Augie Busch, should be noted, right? That is of the Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser fame varieties. But I wanted to ask you, I heard you say
he
that
integrated the team.
But like, for what were the ulterior motives he had? Obviously, if you could just kind of, you know, explain that real quick.
Budweiser was the most popular beer in the country, and it was also the most popular beer with African Americans. And if you think about the fact that he didn't desegregate the team until like 8 years after Jackie Robinson, you know, but at the same time, it's funny, actually, Augie, when he bought the team, he's so baseball illiterate, he actually didn't know he bought an all-white team. He did not know that. Like he had no idea because he didn't pay attention. I mean, he just was a rich guy who did what rich guys do. He bought a baseball team.
Right.
But he didn't know he bought an all-white team, but he bought the team solely to be it's a beer marketing device. I mean, that's all it was, you know, which a lot of people have to remember, that just because somebody rich does something that appears woke, no matter what decade it is, it's probably just so they can stay rich. Like, it has nothing to do with their personal beliefs, you know? But you know, as far as Bob Gibson and the striking fear, you know, people would talk about how he was a madman. People would talk about how he was just an imposing figure. He was an animal on the mound, you know, all these thinly veiled statements, you know, and he would brush you back, but for
people, our listeners who don't know much about baseball, if you kind of explain what brushing somebody back means, like,
so you have so much space, right? Like, you have a batter's box, you have a plate, and you have your personal preference on where you'd like to be. So just like, that's just a natural swing mechanic side of it. But then there's also the fact that, you know, you can get a little bit of an edge if you cover up a little bit of that plate for the pitcher, right? Because the strike zone won't move just because you crowd it. So you're actually taking space away from the strike zone. And if they hit you, you take your base. So from a batter's perspective, the strategy there is, you know, you're essentially daring them to hit you. If you're really good with control, you'll brush a guy back. And that, you got to be good with your control, because what you're trying to do is just back them up. You're not trying to actually put them on base. You don't just want to hit them. But, you know, you want to buzz the tower, if you will. You know, you want to put that fear of God into him, back him up. And he was really good at that. But it came from a spot where that was his plate. You know, I mean, he gave interviews. He passed this in 2020, and with it and sharp all the way till the end too. Great interview with any era Bob Gibson. They're always great interviews. Mm-hmm. But he was always quick to say that was his plate. You know, like, don't crowd my plate and I'll back you up. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of pitchers that would do that. He got a reputation, I think, because of, again, the race thing, right? You know, he was an animal up there and that shit. But, you know, if you are a baseball fan, you also know the name Don Drysdale. I mean, Drysdale hit more people than Bob Gibson in his career, but we don't talk about Drysdale that way.
Yeah, Drysdale's so mean. He's so crude and rough. And just, he just, you know, I wonder why, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Bob had to deal with a lot of that. So like I said, him and Flood were, you know, enjoyed a very successful 60s with another Cardinal who passed away, Lou Brock, who was one of the best base runners the game has ever seen. And those were their three world-class African-American players that were on this overall team that, you know, also included people like Roger Maris. So, you know, they wildly successful team, but here's kind of the kicker that baseball was still under. And baseball had been under this since 1879, and that was the reserve clause. And the reserve clause meant, you know, we'll Nate as an example here. So you want to play baseball. You know, we have versions of a draft, but really it's just about signing people and finding, scouting, and signing people. And when you do that, especially in the 1879 days, but I'm saying even back to, you know, 40s, 50s, you're finding people who are playing. There's various leagues. At this point, the St. Louis Cardinals were the most West team in the major league, you know, system, even though teams like San Diego existed, because they weren't, there was no unified MLB in that way. So you had a lot of leagues. So you'd find guys and you'd sign them. And the reserve clause meant if I did that, I'm going to say, Nate, you're going to join my baseball team. Here's a 1-year contract. And most of us now, current sports mode, you know, in sports brain, we hear that and we go, that's not so bad. You play. And then when that year's up, like you can re-sign, or you probably have some leverage, and you didn't. The reserve clause meant you never had a say. So every year when that's up, the team who has you can either sign you or you don't play, because they had your right. Even if they do not sign you, they're basically like, you know, I think, you know, Nate's coming off an injury, or, you know, last year's numbers weren't great. Like, but I don't want anyone else to have him. So I just won't sign him. And that's what baseball got away with. Baseball got away with that for so long. They had a couple court challenges to it, because that wasn't right, not because that wasn't an honest thing to do. They went after him because that's antitrust. I mean, it's no different than what Cap faced with lots of teams in a league, but their individual businesses coming together to make a decision that you cannot do. So baseball knew that they were absolutely screwed, because the Sherman Act was, you can't do that. You're all these independent businesses. You're in one organization. You cannot collude like this. You cannot, you know, lock this up. So because of the war.
Except though that they did get Congress to go along with that for a long time, under the notion that this is like important for national morale. That these are athletes, these are games, these are games. They're not. It's not the same as like working in a factory or being a laborer, being a worker. So maybe like maybe if we can get to like with Curt Flood, what changed that finally and made it where we're able to break through a lot of that kind of propaganda about how these are not really workers. They're kind of like, you know, they're doing a patriotic duty that our nation needs, and that like they're just athletes playing, they're boys playing boys, right? Sort of thing.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people didn't think they were going to get past this simply because, like you said, the U.S. government thought it was easier to exempt them from a law because of their importance to the nation. Literally became exempt to the Sherman Act. Like, imagine that now. Imagine if they would have been like, Cap, they did collude, but we went ahead and we're going to go ahead and just exempt the NFL from antitrust laws. Anyway, so the kicker was after the 68 season, after the 68 season, Augie Bush traded Curt Flood to the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies, if people, you know, this isn't the 70s Phillies where they were actually really good. Nope, this was the 60s Phillies. They had lost 99 games the year prior. Curt Flood was not looking forward to going to, you know, a losing baseball team. But more than that, he didn't want to go to a racist city. And, you know, if you want to hop in here too and talk about, you know, Dick Allen's play, Dick Allen was part of that trade. Dick Allen was a player who, criminal that he's not in the Hall of Fame, but was coming from Philly and had to deal with that racist fan base, had to deal with everything that was happening. I mean, Dick Allen was thrilled he was coming to St. Louis. It was a successful team that it was integrated, and the fans were mostly accepting. There's racist people everywhere, but
Right. And so, I mean, you have a place like Philadelphia. Let's not forget the mayor is Frank Rizzo, who's like notoriously racist. This guy's like, got off of just going around talking about, like Iron Fist, like Law and Order. He was like a caricature of like Richard Nixon, but just like in a more like way more intense, like, local level. That's just like way cruder and rougher around the edges. And when the Phillies
which
would
is hard to imagine.
When the Phillies would find Dick Allen for when he would, for all sorts of different things, and he would refuse to play for a while, and for good reason, they would just add insult to injury. They would then donate the money, his fine money, to Frank Rizzo's slush fund, basically, for his campaign. So that's that's a little of the background in terms of what Curt Flood was observing and why he had maybe some second thoughts about going to Philly.
He knew what he was getting into, but at the same time, nothing new, right? All baseball players at that point, up until this point, everyone hated the reserve clause. Like I said, they tried to beat it in the 40s. They tried to beat it in the 50s. But what it was going to take was somebody willing to do that thing that somebody always needs to do in order to enact real change. And that is make a sacrifice that's bigger than just, I wish, like I'll do a small, court case. Maybe it'll be local. I'll take it to a state level and just try to beat my team. But Curt Flood decided to take on all of baseball. And he flat out refused to go. And his letter to the commissioner, I think has some great lines, and it kind of, again, relates back to that Kyrie Irving thing. So his letter to the commissioner of baseball on Christmas Eve, 1969, essentially just flat out put it how he saw it. And that was, after 12 years in the major leagues, I do not feel that I am a piece of property to be bought and sold irrespective of my wishes. I believe that any system which produces that result violates my basic rights as a citizen and is inconsistent with the laws of the United States and of several states. So he wanted to play baseball. And here's what he thought. Actually, I was going to put it in my own words, and I forgot there's a second part of this letter where he sums it up absolutely perfectly. And that is that he wants to play baseball in 1970, and he is absolutely capable of playing. I've received a contract offer from the Philadelphia club, but I should have a right to consider offers from other clubs before making any decisions. I therefore request that you make known all major league clubs my feelings in this matter and advise them of my availability. That is modern day free agency. It just didn't exist at this point. It existed in no sport at this point. We hear that and we go, the media now will even call a player who demands a trade or refuses a trade, greedy. They're not a team player, things along those lines. It's just that, players now eventually have options outside of team control. And this was the opposite. So you hear the man's demands, and the man's demands are, look, they offered me a contract. That's great. I don't want to take it. So go ahead and let all the other teams know that I'm not going to go play for them, and let them know that I'm available for the 1970 season. So that letter went unanswered and nothing was fixed. In January, he launched a lawsuit. He had the entire players union behind him. Again, this is that whole, it takes one person to start it on this level, and the rest will support. But at the same time, if you're that one that's out there, you're going to get hit with all of the brunt of that. Bob Gibson said in 1970 that Curt Flood received 4 death threats a day. I mean, 365 days, four people every day had to wish Curt Flood death simply because he didn't want to be the property of a team and have no agency when it comes to what he's going to do and where he's going to play when his contract's no longer wanted by the team that signed him. He sat out the entire 70 season. At this point, that would have been his 13th season. You can only imagine. I mean, dude doesn't have a lot of time left.
No, so that's 1,460 death threats if you want to in 1 year.
What? Yeah.
Because
what,
it's about the idea of it's the racism in America. Yep. Part of it goes back to the idea of controlling the movement of Black people, right? And that's absolutely rooted in chattel slavery, and it's a sense of a white entitlement that's hasn't been fully reckoned with, and that's where that comes from.
Yep. And just like with all things, people don't. If you think our media is just bad now, it doesn't take long. I mean, read the New York Times in 1864, and you'll see why they'll tell you that abolition is. That's a bridge too far, buddy. All media is bad in the time and in the context, and this was no different. I mean, they absolutely
wait, hold on. You mean 1854, or because after 64, year after the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You mean before the Civil War, then? Yeah, got it. My bad. All right, I'm kind of a Civil War nerd, so I apologize.
No, it's good. But I mean, there's literally op-eds where they're like, oh, abolition's too much. Yeah, exactly. Like the media is always bad. Whatever they're dealing with, their take on it's probably wrong. And it was with this too. I won't get into all the headlines. I'll just share my favorite, and that is, there was a headline that ran, "Baseball will die if Flood wins." And that's the most hyperbolic, ridiculous. I mean, it will die. Like, he would kill baseball. Unbelievable. And as we know, free agency happened, and baseball is in fact dead because he killed it. That paper was right. He sat out 70. It went all the way to the Supreme Court in 72. Active players were not really publicly supportive, as you can imagine, because they saw what happened. The dude hadn't played. And now we're into, 14th, 15th season. He's not going to.
Yeah.
It's too long. It's too long to sit out. It's, they basically blacklisted him, froze him. So
it's what's happening to Kaepernick right now. Kaepernick's at the point where it's over. Let's be honest with it. It's not going to happen.
Because throughout all of this, Philadelphia eventually said, well, he's not going to play here. So I'm just going to rip this up. And then he could have played. Somebody could have signed him, and they still didn't.
Right. So, and real quick, just to make the analogy to Cap real quick, it's just I think important to say that with Cap, he, just like with Curt Flood, we're not saying that Cap couldn't play again in the NFL or Curt Flood couldn't have played in the MLB. It's just that under what conditions, right? So Curt Flood, if he would have dropped all this, and was willing to, he could have gone and gotten the career back that all these other guys that didn't want to do this were able to maintain. And because that would have been, MLB could have then said oh, see, he's come around. All right, good. And I can see some old racist, patronizing manager being like, "Oh, good. You made a smart decision, son." You always like to say "son," especially there's to young, Black players. It's that's a thing you get with older white guys. So I could see that. And then with Kaepernick, if he was willing to play ball at the NFL, collaborate with Jay-Z and his little sellout arrangement he's got with the NFL planning their Super Bowl halftime shows, then sure, he could get back in the league, but he's not going to do it just without having some demands too. And that's why Kaepernick has still not played since the 2016 season.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And Flood never played again. And, Flood didn't have a career that, I'll just real quick, a few years after the 72 lawsuit to the Supreme Court, so essentially 1975, 1976 gap, you have a couple of white players join. Just, God, we're gross. We're just such a gross country. But a couple of white players decided to join on publicly, and then, hey, free agency. Damage was done, though, like I said, at this point, Flood with age, he wasn't going to play again. and he never did. But we got free agency, and it wouldn't have happened without that courage of Curt Flood, and without his willingness to sacrifice that, which you need to sacrifice in order for something to change. You can't do it without some level of sacrifice. Flood passed away in the 90s, and only after his death did even the Cardinals put him in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. I mean, he was a part of 3 pennants and 2 championships, and he was a hell of a ball player. Like I said, he wasn't a Hall of Fame caliber on his game alone, but he was that, cusp Hall of Fame kind of guy. Probably would have had a better shot had his career played out and he'd gotten those extra years. But for no other reason than the contribution of free agency. Free agency is in every sport now. And he did this. It is that important to the landscape of sports, how we know it. It's that important to sports as a labor movement, and how you don't just have to take it. And he should be in the Hall of Fame based on that alone. His family petitioned baseball. I mean, they still do. Every year there is a handful of sports writers that back that up. And it doesn't happen. And then to kind of pull this full circle, but this is what happened when you don't just smile, play ball, shut up and dribble, all the different, tropes in there. And that's because Dick Allen also, who, by the way, Hall of Fame career, also not in, and he passed away just very recently, and didn't get in again this time. Fell like a one writer short, like one asshole baseball writer out there, like holding on to grudge, like fucking senators hold on to grudges of Castro.
Yeah. So, all right, Justin,
refuses to let it go.
Why don't you just tell us what you think of the baseball writers of America then, unfiltered? I mean, how about Charles Comiskey while we're at it, or any other wonderful guys, right? That's another thing. We'll do an episode on the Black Sox and how that was class struggle personified in 1919. I mean, I don't have any problem with it, what they did. I mean, first of all, they took advantage of these guys being a lot of Southern illiterate young guys that were not being paid. It was literal wage theft going on with the owner Comiskey of the White Sox. And yet it's Arnold Rothstein, kind of some mob figures came in and exploited that situation. Right. But Shoeless Joe Jackson, who still can't get into Hall of Fame, put up some of his best stats, in that World Series still. So, class struggles all over baseball. And the reality is Abdul Malik, who wrote a piece, or he writes for Jacobin sometimes, and in some Canadian dimension, some other leftist, journal outlets in Canada. It came on the show a month ago and talked about how it's sports are the most visible place of labor struggle in American society, because the media doesn't cover labor disputes and lockouts and union movements and whatnot. They go issues Teamster elections and other big labor issues. They're afterthoughts, and that's not an accident. They tried to decimate the labor movement, going back to especially to Reagan. I mean, you can't. It's impossible to overstate the damage Ronald Reagan did. I mean, in so many people's lives. I mean, this guy should be burning in hell. I mean, he's absolutely coming in there and the whole, I can't hear. I'm just an old guy. I'm Newt Rockney. I'm going to win one for the Gipper. And all this BS, man. I mean, this guy is so evil. Yeah. It's just unreal. And he was the perfect guy to come in 1980. On the heels of to help atone and help America heal its wounds from the indignity of Vietnam, right? Into also all the counterculture stuff they wanted to put a lid on. And he had a union of neoliberal, just just truly evil, like Ayn Randian, like capitalist types, and Alan Greenspan like types of just ghoulish, grotesque figures with like the religious right. And that marriage, like, really brought it to pass. And they crushed the air traffic controllers. They crushed a lot of other unions. They got these Reagan Democrats, these like racist type, workers that they were white workers that didn't, that voted for Reagan because of his, they liked the things he was doing to go after black people and lock up lots of, cause mass incarceration. And obviously Bill Clinton, continued to build on that. But it's really remarkable. And it's like, and what Curt Flood did is just, and Dick Allen too, for that matter. I mean, this is Buck O'Neil, I want to say, like, there's someone who, like, they're one of those amazing figures of baseball history, not just in the Negro leagues, but in the major leagues afterwards. I mean, you talk about, like, until he passed away, they literally had to wait till right after he died to induct him. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, he's in Cooperstown now, right? But it's like, what is wrong with these people? Like, I don't know. I want to let some rage out, man. Like, tell me what you think about baseball writers.
No, it's an institution that, like, first of all, like, I guess I can sum it up this way. It's what happens when you give one group of people all the power. I mean, they don't have some of it; they have it all. And to give some context, if you're unfamiliar, so the Baseball Writers Association is the only institution that gets to nominate to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I mean, they hold all of that power.
And the Hall of Fame is privately owned too.
Yep.
So
it is central. Like, it is, you have this sport that belongs to all of us that is literally controlled in terms of who its most important players are to a tiny group of people. It's like, what, 500?
Yeah. And like, I mean, it does belong to all of us, but it literally does not, because of of capitalism, right?
Exactly.
And the fact of private ownership and appropriation.
It belongs to them, and they take out grudges with it all the time.
Oh yeah. If someone didn't give you the access you wanted, if they didn't give you the quotes you wanted, like, you get rewarded for playing ball, right? For currying favor, for being obsequious, for acting obsequiously. Yeah.
Look, you've got this gross baseball hat that's sitting in the middle of those three hats back there. It's got this really gross NY on it. Yeah. Anyway, Mariano Rivera is the greatest closer of all time, and I hate the Yankees. I absolutely abhor the Yankees. And I can say Mariano Rivera is the greatest closer of all time. I mean, he had some bad games, but, like, he is the greatest closer of all time.
27 World Series titles.
He literally, hey, we have the second most.
Hey, if you ain't first, you're last.
He literally was not a unanimous vote because of a fucking sports writer in Boston.
There you go.
He wasn't a unanimous first ballot.
Hey, that guy, Boston sports writers matter, Justin.
Yeah.
I'm joking. Obviously, that would be a wonderful reactionary.
If there's somebody out there who wants to know why this is a horrible system, because you have the greatest player to ever do a position, should be a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Because that matters. It matters being first ballot. It matters being, you don't want to be that last chance ballot.
Who was that? Who was that? Bob Ryan or something, or like Dan Shaughnessy, or like,
so you have, like, put it this way.
How about this, man? Go ahead.
Nolan. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, Nolan Ryan. How many Cy Youngs did Nolan Ryan win?
An insane amount, but he also had an insane amount of losses too. Like, I mean, this guy, like, he struck out a lot of guys, but he, Cy Young's 0. I mean, wow. Well,
so, but my point is that, like, when it comes to, like, a
0.
man like
if you're listening, he held up
0. Right. So, like, my point is that, like, Nolan Ryan was a first ballot Hall of Famer with nobody making petty votes against him because, it's Nolan Ryan. But for some reason, Mariano Rivera, with all of his records, still can have one asshole in Boston just go, I hate the Yankees. And just literally, but they have to make an argument. What do you think his argument was?
There is none.
Like, why do you?
Because I can.
Exactly.
All right. So, anyways, let's go down a list. I'm gonna give you we'll wrap on this just to have some fun. But I'm gonna give you a name of a baseball writer, media figure, and just kind of name association. Peter Gammons. Peter Gammons.
No thanks.
Tom Verducci.
Oh my God, Tom Verducci.
Tom Verducci.
Word association with Tom Verducci.
Come on, man. Let's bring it.
Sleaze, man. Sleaze.
All right. Ken Rosenthal. Ken Rosenthal, the bow tie.
A broken clock is wrong 2 times a day.
All right. So not the smartest tool in the shed. All right. Let's go Joe Morgan.
Joe Morgan, he brought a lot of that former player, experience there, but man, he drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Just one of those guys that just, he just loved company water, man.
All right. Harold Reynolds.
I enjoy watching. I actually enjoy watching Harold Reynolds.
I enjoy his analysis. Actually, I think he's a pretty good analyst.
Yep.
And again, a former player.
If I had to does he get? I'm trying to remember if Harold Reynolds gets a vote.
I don't know. He's not like the baseball writers. He's like a media. He doesn't really write so much as but
there's some weird cusp guys in there too, though.
Yeah, he might. I'd be fine with it if he did.
Yeah. If he did, I would assume that I would agree with most of his votes. But again, we're shitting on the system, not every single member of it.
Right. So I know we're just kind of having some fun here. So what about who is this guy from St. Louis, the MLB Network main co-host? Oh, I know. Jason Varitek.
I was gonna say, don't bring up Gould. I was like, don't bring up Gould.
No. Jason.
We got in a fight on Twitter once.
Hold on. Jason Varitek and Heidi Ness. They called her the Nesson girl, which is kind of patronizing, but I was wondering if you heard this story before, where he had Heidi Watney, the Heidi Watney Jason Varitek affair. Interesting stuff, right?
No, didn't know about an affair there.
Oh yeah. They had an affair. He was cheating on his wife while she was with Nesson, and it was kind of a thing that went on, and maybe did some not so straight things for the family there, but nonetheless, let's move on there. We got one of the worst. I'll say it's Michael Kay. I don't know if you're familiar. New York Yankees play-by-play guy on Yes Network. Is host of the afternoon show Michael Kay Show on ESPN 98.7 New York. This guy loves himself. He with no sense of irony proclaims that he's the smartest guy ever. They were talking about how if sports writers that could go to being managers, he said that I'm a genius, so definitely me. And you think being self-deprecating, and he's Michael Kay, and he has a show Center Stage on Yes, and he's and he makes these witty little jokes that are you're just kind of cringy, and he's a used car salesman packaged up as a better, kind of a fancier version of that, but it's just there's nothing really there. Skip Carey.
Skip Carey.
Right, Harry Carey.
Wasn't even a baseball guy.
He had an affair with the Cardinals owner's wife or whatever. That's how he ended up with the Cubs.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Bob Uecker, man. We'll end on Bob Uecker.
We're gonna end on Bob Uecker and not Jack Buck.
Jack Buck, then Bob Uecker.
Yeah. Jack Buck. Yeah. Easily my favorite voice of baseball. Going back and listening to things from before I was born and absolutely. Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, like, love Jack Buck. What a terrible child he had. But anyway.
Yeah, but Matt, having to listen to him with Troy Aikman, you know, like if you watch the NFL, it's just like, oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah. But it's really hard to be Joe Buck and just have, the most famous baseball announcer dad and then make it in the world of sports broadcasting.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Not at all, man. It's sort of like your Jack Collinsworth.
Jack Buck's in the Hall of Fame for talking about baseball.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right. Vin Scully, who your lovely anti-communist warrior there. Who during broadcast would talk about the Cuban defector that swam miles.
You know what
I mean, look, that stuff that I hate anti-communism as an ideology, but like Vin Scully's voice, I mean, he's like, it's undeniable that he's amazing at what he did.
His Scullyisms, as they used to say, that shit where he's a
great storyteller,
like a backwards riddle.
He's a great storyteller. Like
you
can listen to his games, and like he would actually give you depth and like of who these players were, like their backgrounds, like telling a narrative where it made it like real, and you realize he humanized the players, and I think that's one of the best things you could say about him. So we have a few others there. I mean, actually, we got to wrap up. We're done just dragging here, but
it's all good, man.
Yeah, Bob Uecker, though. I mean, but Milwaukee Brewers, but for a lot of people of Major League fame, the movie series.
Bob Uecker did a lot of good for baseball by being in baseball things.
Cardinals,
absolutely. Yep, and just by being in baseball stuff. Being in baseball movies, being in baseball, like that's outreach in my opinion. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's about as good as you can get, within being part of that, part of the system. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap. Appreciate y'all. Like as always, we'll put up some links. If you enjoy the content and want to see more, please help us out at patreon.com/Redspin Sports. I'm at Nate Wallace 9 on Twitter. Justin's at Juice10 tweets on Twitter. Mike, who's not here, is at Brother Flourish on Twitter. So try to check us out there at Redspin Sports too. Well, I usually tweet from, but Justin and Mike will start doing that too a little bit. We're also, I put stuff up on Facebook and Instagram too, but hopefully we will have the audio of this out first. I mean, not hopefully, we will. And then and whenever Justin and get the editing lined up, we'll get the video out on YouTube. So I appreciate it. And until next time, I'm out. Justin, appreciate it. Episode number 1 for you in the bank. So
absolutely
in the books. I mean, so we'll wrap right there, and everyone take care. Happy MLK Day. Peace.